Vandana Hari, founder and CEO of Vanda Insights. So you're about 70 points down is the implied open. I mean, this is cocking a snook. Honestly, a 70-point down implied open could be on a random Thursday.
Nice.
Snooker
analogy.
This is, you know, like really like Trump. Okay, bring it on. Vandana Hari joining in. Thank you so much, Vandana, for speaking with us. Always a pleasure. Now, I want you to take us through the possible scenarios from here on. India reduces some of its Russian oil imports so that you have something to bring to the table, or we dig in. What way do you think this can go?
Okay, I would take a step back as a starting point. Namely, there is a possibility now, a real possibility, I would say, that there is actually a diplomatic solution to this. So after that announcement through Trump's executive orders last night with imposing a 25% additional secondary tariff on India, in his comments with media, a few other very interesting developments emerged. Which was that his envoy Steve Witkoff's meetings in Moscow yesterday weren't all that unsuccessful. There were some threads that came out of it which could lead to a diplomatic solution. And Trump even put out the possibility of having a conversation, a face-to-face meeting with Putin and Zelensky potentially within next week. So there is that diplomatic route out of this situation for India. Now, while it does seem from the executive order that the 25% additional tariffs are a done deal, that there isn't now room for negotiation for India on this particular point, but I would argue that should there be a diplomatic rapprochement in the next 21 days? You know, it's not until 21 days that the secondary tariffs on India kick in. They could be completely unwound. So right now, it's a little bit of a hypothetical situation. I agree, a lot of uncertainty. There has to be a plan B for India, the government and the Indian refiners, but it's a slightly hypothetical situation as to what India should do with regard to its Russian crude imports.
Vandana, hi. Russia apparently constituted about a tenth of global oil supply in 2024, India purchasing between 13 and 18% of that. And this accounts for a large part of, a significant portion of India's imports. I'm just wondering, if you had to replace that, what are the implications? And what about the rest of the countries that are buying the rest of Russia's oil?
Yeah, Neeraj, I don't believe India will have any problems whatsoever in replacing that oil. So just let's remind ourselves that India was buying practically zero crude from Russia right until 2021. So this is like going back in history, right? It's not on and off. So what has happened in the past 3 years as Russian crude has grown to take about nearly a third of India's import basket share is that India has bought less crude from the traditional suppliers in the Middle East, of course, you know, the big suppliers, Saudi Arabia, Iraq as well to some extent, UAE, Kuwait, and so on, but also bought less from countries that supply more lighter grades, including the US, including countries like Nigeria and Angola. Now, India, in theory, I'll explain what I mean by in theory, could go back to all of these suppliers and ask for more barrels. The reason I say in theory is that not all of these have ready additional capacity to give India much more crude. So we know, for instance, countries like, you know, especially the West African producers have been, and even far afield suppliers like Mexico are facing a natural decline. And it'll be very hard for them, especially at short notice, to produce or supply much more. But India could turn back to countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iraq. These are the traditional suppliers of medium and heavy grades, which is what India needs, which would also be a more suitable replacement for Russia's Urals grade. So it could turn to them. But in terms of implications, yes, we can expect a rise in global flat crude prices because of some Russian supply getting locked out of the market, at least for a little while. And the discounts that India has enjoyed on Russian crude, obviously those would disappear. So it's not very good news for the bottom line of India's refiners.
Okay, thank you so much, Vandana Hari there.